The year 9 AD marks a pivotal moment in the annals of history, a catastrophic defeat that forever altered the trajectory of the Roman Empire and the very map of Europe. In the murky depths of the Teutoburg Forest, 3 Roman legions, commanded by Publius Quinctilius Varus, were ambushed and annihilated by a coalition of Germanic tribes led by Arminius. This crushing defeat halted Rome's ambitions to expand eastward beyond the Rhine, solidifying a frontier that would define Europe for centuries. The un-Romanized Germanic tribes remained a persistent, looming threat, eventually playing a decisive role in the unraveling of the Western Roman Empire and ushering in the so-called Dark Ages. But what if, by some subtle twist of fate, the Battle of Teutoburg Forest never happened, and Rome successfully conquered Germania? Imagine a world where Varus, perhaps through superior intelligence or a change in tactics, outmaneuvered Arminius's ambush, securing a decisive victory for the legions. The core of Arminius's coalition would shatter, its leaders captured or slain, and the path into Germania Magna would lie open to Rome's full might. This singular victory would redefine the northern frontier, allowing Rome to extend its administrative and cultural influence deep into the lands east of the Rhine. The immediate aftermath would see a wave of Roman consolidation, engineers constructing new roads, forts, and bridges, connecting the newly subjugated territories to the vast imperial network. New Roman towns and settlements would rapidly spring up, acting as centers of administration, trade, and, crucially, Romanization. Legionary camps, intended to be temporary, would evolve into permanent cities, attracting Roman citizens, merchants, and artisans eager for new opportunities. The local Germanic chieftains and elites, rather than resisting, would slowly be integrated into the Roman system, adopting Latin, Roman law, and Roman ways of life to maintain their status. For the common people, taxation and military service would become new realities, but also access to Roman goods, infrastructure, and the Pax Romana's stability. Emperor Augustus, rather than lamenting the loss of his legions, would instead celebrate a triumph of unprecedented scale, solidifying his legacy as the empire's greatest expander. His successor, Tiberius, would inherit a more secure northern frontier, potentially freeing up legions for other campaigns or internal development, rather than constant border skirmishes. The conquest of Germania would provide Rome with vast new resources, from rich timberlands and mineral deposits to fertile agricultural land, bolstering the imperial economy significantly. This newfound stability and wealth might lead to an even longer period of Pax Romana, deferring some of the internal and external pressures that historically plagued the empire. The cultural impact would be profound, as Latin, Roman legal traditions, and urban planning spread much further north and east than in our timeline. The Germanic languages, while not entirely extinguished, would likely become regional dialects, heavily influenced by Latin, or relegated to the fringes of Roman civilization. This would birth new Romance cultures and languages in Central Europe, akin to those in Gaul, Hispania, and Italia, creating a far more uniform Western European cultural sphere. Decades later, the geopolitical map of Europe would look drastically different. The Rhine River would no longer be a hard border, but an internal artery within a vast Roman Empire. The critical absence of the Teutoburg Forest defeat means that the Roman military would never develop the deep-seated caution towards large-scale trans-Rhenish campaigns. This confidence could fuel further, albeit gradual, expansion towards the Elbe or even beyond, solidifying a continuous Roman presence across Central Europe. The traditional Germanic migrations, such as the Goths, Vandals, and Franks, that critically destabilized the Western Roman Empire in our timeline, would be vastly different. Many Germanic tribes would have been absorbed, Romanized, or pushed further north and east, creating a buffer against other nomadic groups from the Eurasian steppes. Without these migrations, the Western Roman Empire might never fall in the manner it did, preserving its administrative structures, legal systems, and urban centers. This fundamentally alters the very concept of the Dark Ages. The extensive loss of knowledge, infrastructure, and centralized governance would simply not occur. Instead, Roman law, Latin literature, and classical philosophy would remain central to Western European intellectual life, fostering an unbroken continuity of classical learning. Technological advancements, particularly in areas like hydraulic engineering, architecture, and agricultural methods, would persist and gradually improve rather than stagnating or declining. The rise of feudalism, a system born from fractured authority and localized defense against invaders, would be significantly delayed or even entirely averted. Instead, a more centralized Roman imperial administration would likely maintain order, providing justice and security across its vast territories. The emergence of distinct national identities like French or German, rooted in post-Roman barbarian kingdoms, would be prevented. Instead, a broader, pan-Roman identity would define Europe, albeit with regional variations, much like the provinces of the later empire. Christianity's development would also differ, spreading throughout a largely unified Roman world, perhaps preventing the major schisms that historically divided East and West. The Church, potentially remaining under the stronger influence of a continuously powerful Roman emperor, might also develop with a more centralized, unified authority. Such a world would see a vastly different medieval era, if such a period even truly occurred, characterized by greater stability, literacy, and continuity with classical antiquity. The seeds of Renaissance, planted firmly in preserved classical knowledge, might blossom centuries earlier, accelerating the pace of scientific and artistic progress. How might this uninterrupted cultural and technological flow affect global exploration, industrialization, and ultimately, our modern world? Centuries hence, the landscape of Europe would be almost unrecognizable from our own, dominated by Romanesque cities and a network of efficient Roman roads. The idea of a Germany or a France would be alien. Instead, one would find provinces like Germania Superior, Germania Inferior, and Noricum Secunda, all united under the Roman banner. Latin, or its evolved Romance descendants, would be spoken from the Atlantic to the Vistula, creating an immense linguistic and cultural commonality. The great cathedrals of this alternate Middle Ages would retain more classical architectural elements, perhaps blending Roman basilicas with early Gothic forms seamlessly. Daily life for an ordinary citizen might involve navigating bustling Roman markets in cities like Augusta Germania or Colonia Traiana, rather than small, isolated villages. Education, even for the common classes, could be more widespread, with access to Latin literacy providing a gateway to classical texts and imperial bureaucracy. The Western Roman Empire, perhaps having never truly fallen, might have evolved into a continuous, bureaucratic, and highly Romanized successor state, a true eternal empire of the West. This powerful unified entity would dominate the European continent, potentially clashing with or influencing its Eastern Roman counterpart in ways we can only speculate. The Slavic peoples to the east, historically rising to prominence after the Germanic migrations, would encounter a far more formidable and organized Roman frontier. Their migrations and cultural development would undoubtedly be shaped by the immense shadow of a contiguous Roman European power. Britain, too, would likely remain firmly within the Roman fold, free from the Anglo-Saxon invasions that carved out its later identity, becoming a thoroughly Romanized island. Its subsequent history, including the development of English law and language, would be radically different, perhaps yielding a Romano-British culture with a Latin-derived tongue. This world, shielded from the historical Dark Ages, might see accelerated innovation, perhaps leading to an earlier industrial revolution or even an early modern age with a classical foundation. Imagine Roman flying machines exploring the skies or Romanesque computers processing information, a speculative leap driven by sustained classical learning. The very philosophical underpinnings of society might favor rationalism and civic duty, echoing the Roman Republic and Empire rather than medieval theological debates. The art and architecture would evolve, but always with a powerful connection to its classical Roman roots, influencing every aspect of daily aesthetics. The names of emperors, generals, and thinkers from this Romanized Germania would resonate through the ages, household names in a continuous classical civilization. This world could be one of remarkable order, stability, and enduring classical heritage, but perhaps also one with less diversity in its cultural development. The simple victory in a single forest, a seemingly minor alteration to history, unfolds into a cascading wave of consequences that reshapes an entire continent. This thought experiment underscores the profound contingency of history, how seemingly small decisions or events can echo through millennia. The world we inhabit, with its distinct nations, languages, and cultures, is not an inevitable outcome, but a delicate tapestry woven from countless choices and happenstance. In this alternate reality, the ghost of Varus's triumph whispers through Romanized forests, reminding us that the grand narrative of history is always just one path not taken.